Hey everybody, I'm back, and this time it's a story time. This time I'm going to be recounting for you the time that I went to Coimbra and the unsettling things that happened to me there. So this was back in 2012 when I was still kind of getting to know Portugal. I was still traveling around and seeing a lot of different places for the first time, including Coimbra. At this point I had already gone to Porto and I had already gone and seen a lot of things around Lisbon and in the Lisbon area, but I hadn't gone to Coimbra and I knew a little bit about it and I wanted to see it for myself. I knew about the University of Coimbra, which is the oldest university in Portugal and one of the oldest universities in Europe, so I wanted to see it and get a taste of what the place is like for myself. Coimbra is known as a college town. It has that same kind of vibe that we come to expect of smaller towns that are focused around a university. The day that I went to Coimbra was just a random day of the week, so I was really just there for a day-to-day taste of Coimbra. And by and large, I found that to be true while I was there. There were a lot of students all over Coimbra during the day that I was there. The day that I spent in Coimbra itself was fine. I met up with a friend that I knew that lived there that happened to be there for the day, and then I went around the university and I saw the things there, and then I went and walked around the old town and saw a bunch of other stuff. It was a pretty decent day, I have to say. But toward the end of my day, something weird started to happen. Now, the train between Lisbon and Coimbra does not take that long, so I wasn't too worried about getting on a specific train or if I was gonna miss a train or something. I just had a general idea of when I wanted to get back to Lisbon so that I wouldn't be getting home too late or anything. So I calculated when I needed to get on my train, and I had about an hour-ish before I had to do that, and I was kind of tired and done with being there for the day. I was just ready to go home, but I still had time to kill, so I was walking around the historic city center, and I was on one of the main pedestrian thoroughfares. Now, I'm a very attentive person, and I spend a lot of time people watching, and I'm always aware of my surroundings. So as I was walking around, I was walking in one direction, and I noticed the people kind of going in that direction, paying attention to whether they were going to go off on a different street or whatever. But there was this one guy that I noticed, and then I kept walking down the same street, and whereas everybody else had kind of veered off onto their own paths, they'd gone into stores or they turned the street and gone somewhere else, this guy was still walking, and I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, okay, people continue to walk. It's a coincidence that we're on the same path, whatever. So I keep walking, and I'm walking toward a square, and I notice that this person is still walking in the same direction as I am, but it also seems that they're walking at a deliberate kind of pace alongside but kind of behind me. And I didn't really think that much of it until I got to the square where I was going. And with the time that I had left, I thought about maybe buying a cheap souvenir or doing something along those lines, maybe getting a snack before I got on my train to get home. And then I got to the square and I was going to take out some money from an ATM in order to do that. And I went up to the ATM and I realized that the sun was beaming right down onto the ATM, so you couldn't see anything on the screen. It would have been impossible to get money out of the ATM or use it in general, so I decided against doing that. And as I turned around in this square, I see this guy sitting down, like looking at me, trying to do this at the ATM. And that's when I started to get freaked out, because I'm like, this guy is clearly following me. This is weird. So in order to test whether this guy is following me, I started to make my way to the station, because I figured I'll just get a snack and wait this out. I'll listen to my music and I'll go into the train station and I'll get on the train and I'll go home. No big deal. And so I'm making my way toward the train station, kind of zigzagging along small streets, and I see that this person is doing the exact same thing as I am, following me on exactly the same streets as I'm going. And so I think, oh, this person really is following me. So I went up to a cafe that was across the street from the train station, and I saw this person stop at the same cafe and order something to drink. And I went in the cafe anyway, and I sat down because I was hungry and I wanted something to drink. I had like a sumol and a pastry. It was no big deal. So I got done with what I was having and I paid for my stuff, and so I basically just booked it across the street into this train station, because at this point I'm really freaked out. And so I get into the train station, I pay for my ticket back to Lisbon, and I see that I have about 10 or so minutes to wait until my train leaves. And so I thought, okay, I'll find my train, I'll sit out by it, enjoy a little bit of the sunlight that's left, and then I'll get on my train and everything will be fine. But then I saw, as I'm walking into the platform area, the same guy walks into the platform area and sits down right across from the train that I'm getting on. Now, mind you, I still have about 10 minutes before my train departs, so I start freaking out. I'm like, is this guy gonna get on the train at the same time? Am I gonna be followed all the way to Lisbon? What is going on? Oh my god, this is really weird. So I look around and I'm looking for people who are getting on the train in groups, because I figure I will just sit next to a group of people, and that way if something weird happens, at least there are people around to witness it. So I got on the train behind a few people, and I noticed that he actually walked down to where I had gotten on the train and sat down on a bench outside the train. Thankfully, he did not get on the train. I did not get followed all the way home to Lisbon, but the story does not stop there. Because as luck would have it, that was apparently Let's Follow Sacha Around Day, and I got to Estação do Oriente, and I was gonna go home, and I was living in Intendente at this time, so I got on the metro there. I was gonna take it all the way home. It was gonna be no big deal. But then I notice when I get on the metro, there's this drunk-looking, scraggly, homeless-looking guy staring directly at me. And there were no seats available on the metro, so I was standing, I was near the door, and I was thinking nothing of it. I had my music in my ears, I had my bag, and I had some souvenirs and stuff, the stuff that I had with me during the day in Coimbra. And so as I'm going along the stops on the red line, I'm noticing that this guy is still staring at me, and he's sort of muttering, mumbling to himself things that you can't understand. So I get off the metro at the interchange at Alameda, and I go to get on the green line, which is the line that goes down to Intendente. But then I get down into the station, and I know the same guy is still right next to me. He's like right next to me in the middle of this crowd of people on the metro at like 10 o'clock at night. So I'm already freaked out by being followed around Coimbra at the end of my day there, and now I gotta deal with this guy following me on the metro who looks drunk and a whole lot less safe than even the guy in Coimbra. I go down the stations to Intendente, I get off of the train at Intendente, and then I see this guy get off the train at the same time, and he's keeping pace with me as I'm exiting the metro, and he exited the metro right after me, and he's right next to me. He's looking and talking right to me, and we're just mumbling. I can't understand him. And so I start to get really freaked out because he's like fidgeting on the inside of his jacket. So from the metro station to my door is about 100 meters, and I ran. I literally ran. I opened the door as fast as I possibly could. I closed it as hard as I could, and I pushed the elevator button so that I could get up to my apartment and breathe deeply. And the guy had started to run after me, but he continued on past my building, thinking that I had continued on. It was only later that he realized that I stopped and got in my building. So as the elevator was getting to the ground floor where I was so that I could get up to my apartment, I see the guy get back, and he pounds on the glass door that was the front door to our building and starts yelling. And then I got in the elevator and I went up to my room and I was fine. But it was really freaky. So I guess if there's any moral to this story, it's try not to get followed when you're doing fun things like seeing a new city for the first time. I have to say I had a fun time in Coimbra. Like I said, I saw a friend when I was there. I got to see stuff around the university. I got to discover a new town. Coimbra is a very old, historic Portuguese city, and it is very well worth visiting. But if you go, just be careful and don't get followed. So that's all I've got for this story time. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you enjoy story time style videos and you'd like to see me make more of them, leave me a thumbs up down below. If you're not already, you might think about subscribing to my channel. I make videos about food, culture, and the Portuguese language that you can find in playlists in the eye above, and I will see you next time.